Hi everybody, welcome back. We're going to do 5.4, which is systems of nonlinear equations in two variables. So this means that some of the problems that you'll be given are not necessarily going to be lines. One or two maybe, but it's going to be mixed together with something that's not a line, like a parabola or a circle or an ellipse, something like that. So we're going to start by solving by the substitution method. You can do the same methods that we did before with the substitution, elimination, blah, blah, blah. It's just your answers are going to be a little bit different because what's happening is, like, let's look at what we have in this one. For checkpoint 1, we have x squared equals y minus 1, and then we have 4x minus y equals negative 1. So when you have an x squared and just a y, that's going to be a parabola. This one here is a line. So we have a parabola and a line. If we just think about what those look like when they're graphed, you could have two solutions because the line could cross the parabola 2 times. You could also have no solutions if that line fell below the parabola, or if it was opening down, it could open up, whatever the case may be. But just kind of keep in mind, I could have up to 2 solutions. So I'm going to solve by substitution. So I'm going to plug in for y. And I can use either equation to solve for y, because then I'll be putting them together. I'm going to go ahead and just change this one to x squared plus 1 equals y. But then you still have to be careful when you plug this in for y because of the minus. So you have 4x minus, and then it'll be x squared plus 1 parentheses equals negative 1. Distributing the negative, you have 4x minus x squared minus 1 equals negative 1. I don't want that x squared to be negative, but I'll deal with that in a second. For this, I would add 1 to both sides, which actually would make them cross out on both sides, no matter which way we moved it. So putting this in order, you have negative x squared plus 4x equals 0. And you could divide everything by negative 1, because you're technically including the 0 by negative 1, dividing the 0 by negative 1, which would be 0. So it works. And then I'm going to factor what I have left, take out an x, and you would have x minus 4 is 0. Set each piece equal to 0. So you get x is 0 and x is 4. So there is 2 potential answers here. We have where x is 0 and where x is 4. So I'm going to plug each of those in and see what I get for y. Up there, we had that x squared plus 1 equals y. So x squared plus 1 equals y. So first I'm going to do x is 0. So 0 squared plus 1 is y, so that means 1 is y. So our first answer is 0, 1. The two graphs intersected 0, 1. Then my other answer, we're going to plug 4 in for x. So 4 squared plus 1 is y. That's 16 plus 1, that's 17. So our other answer is 4 for x, 17 for y. So you're solving it the same way. You just end up having to plug in twice when you have 2 different x's. And the examples that the book did in the checkpoints, are actually really good because we have a lot of different scenarios that will happen throughout the checkpoints. All right, looking at checkpoint 2. Okay, it says to solve by substitution as well. Sometimes you have no choice with these, but to solve by substitution. Even though I know some people don't like it and would rather do elimination. Alright, so we have a line, x plus 2y equals 0. I know it's a line because nothing is squared or anything like that. And then we have x minus 1 squared plus y minus 1 squared equals 5. So that's a circle. That's a circle whose center is at 1, 1. Radius is the square root of 5, if you remember all that. So we have a circle, excuse me, and we have a line. So it could potentially intersect in 2 places. It could also intersect in 0. It could also intersect in 1. So we'll just kind of start solving and see what happens. So, solving for a variable, I definitely think it's easier to solve for x. Because if you solve for y, you'd have to divide by 2. So x equals negative 2y. So I'm going to replace x with negative 2y. This is going to be a bit of a pain. Like you can already see that. Because we have to solve that now for y. I replace the x with negative 2y. Which means we're going to have to FOIL these out. We're going to have to do negative 2y minus 1 times negative 2y minus 1. And we're going to have to multiply y minus 1 and y minus 1. And then we're going to have to combine our like terms. Negative 2y times negative 2y, that's 4y squared. Outer, we have a positive 2y. Inner, we have a positive 2y. Negative 1 times negative 1 is a positive 1. Over here, y times y is y squared. Outer, we would have negative y. Inner, we would have negative y. Negative 1 times negative 1 is plus 1. And then it equals 5. Alright, combining all my like terms. 4y squared and y squared are 5y squared. Then we have 2 plus 2 is 4. Minus 1 takes us to 3. Minus 1 takes us to 2. So we have 2y. And then 1 plus 1 is 2 equals 5. Alright, then I want to bring this 5 over. So we have 5y squared plus 2y. 2 minus 5 would be negative 3 equals 0. Alright, now that's the ugly factoring. So we got to factor it. 5 times negative 3. If you know how to guess and check your way through it, awesome. Or you could do the liar method where multiply the first and the last, you get negative 15. Two numbers that multiply to negative 15 but add to 2 would be 5 and negative 3. So if we start with 5y plus 5 and 5y minus 3, the only way we make that true is the 5 and the 5 will be divisible by 5. So we have y plus 1 and 5y minus 3. And then set each of those equal to 0. So you get y is negative 1. And 5y equals 3. So you also get y is 3/5. Alright, now we plug each of those in. So I'm going to go back to the x equals negative 2y. Let's see. I'm just going to rewrite them to put it all together. Okay, x equals negative 2y. So we're plugging that into there, into y. So x equals negative 2 times negative 1. X would be 2. So one answer is 2, negative 1. I hope there's my answers. Yep, okay. Now this one, plugging into x equals negative 2y. Plugging that in there for y. X equals negative 2 times 3/5. Just multiply top times top to get negative 6. And then technically it's 1 times 5 because it's negative 2 over 1. So you get negative 6/5. So our other answer is negative 6/5, 3/5. Alright, that's checkpoint 2. That was a rough one, just because of the squares, basically. Alright, checkpoint 3 you can actually solve this one not by substitution. This one you had to do substitution. There's no way you could do anything else in that one. All right, so checkpoint 3, a different situation. Again, we're just going to solve the system. And we have 3x squared plus 2y squared equals 35, and 4x squared plus 3y squared equals 48. All right, so what you have here is 2 ellipses. And 2 ellipses could potentially intersect in 4 places. They could also intersect in 0 places. So we just have to solve and see. But this one you can actually solve by elimination. So we could eliminate a variable and then plug back in. So like let's say we got rid of the x's because you have 3 and 4. So we could multiply this equation by -4 and this one by 3, and we'd have 12 and -12. So -12 x squared, 2 times -4 is -8 y squared equals, and then 35 times -4 is -140. And then 12x squared plus 9y squared equals 144. We add these together, -8 and 9, that's nice. It's y squared equals, and then this would be 4. So if y squared equals 4, then y is a positive and a -2. So there's your 2 possible solutions for y, positive and negative. So I'm going to take and plug this in. I'm going to pick an equation. Let's just go with 3x squared plus 2y squared equals 35. Okay, and technically we need to plug in y is -2 and y equals 2. Kind of doing the long way, just to show you what happens. So 3x squared plus 2 times -2 squared equals 35. So 3x squared, this would -2 is 4, times 2 would be plus 8 equals 35. Subtract the 8, so 3x squared equals 27. Divide by 3, x squared equals 9. Take the square root, so x is plus or minus 3. So we have 2 answers for when y is -2. So we have a positive and a -3, negative, and y is -2. That's 2 answers right there. If I go over here and plug in the 2, when you square the 2, you get 4, you get 8, and then multiply by 2, you get 8. It's the exact same thing that we just did. So I'm not going to do it again because it's right there. So you're going to get x is plus or minus 3. So your other 2 answers would be plus or minus 3, positive 2. So we do have 4 answers here. So the easiest way to write this answer is plus or minus 3, plus or minus 2. Just be careful with this answer because you want to make sure that you really mean it's 4 answers. And I know my math lab is sometimes weird about choosing plus or minus. If you were to write them all out, you have -3, -2. You have -3, positive 2. You have positive 3, -2. And you have positive 3, positive 2. Okay, they mean the same thing. My math lab will probably be weird about it. So we'll just kind of play that one by ear. If it marks something wrong and you're like, I'm pretty sure that's right, especially if it's due to a plus or minus, just email me and I'll go in there and I'll change it. But I like those. They're my favorite to do. All right, let's look at checkpoint 4. All right, solve the system. All right, checkpoint 4, we have y equals x squared plus 5. And we have x squared plus y squared equals 25. All right, so what we have here is we have a parabola and we have a circle. So who knows how these are going to intersect? They could intersect, I mean, really it could intersect up to 4 times. We don't know. It could intersect once, it could intersect twice. We don't really know. Honestly, this one's not bad to graph because this is just a parabola shifted up 5. And this is a circle with a radius of 5. So if we really thought about this one, circle with a radius of 5, I'm going to call this 5. Okay, so a circle with a radius of 5, and then a parabola that's shifted up 5, you can kind of see the answer pretty quickly. The only answer that it's going to have is the point right here at 0, 5. So I already know the answer just based on the graph. But let's do the algebra behind it, because the first couple times I did this problem, I never thought of that. And I was like, oh yeah, that one's pretty easy. I'm going to solve the system. I'm actually going to solve it using elimination, or the addition method. I'm going to multiply this equation by negative. No, I'm not. Just kidding. I have to bring the x squared over, which will make it negative. All right, so you have negative x squared plus y is 5, and then x squared plus y squared equals 25. And then we can add them together and the x squareds eliminate. So all you're left with is y's. You can't add y squared and y together, so just write them side by side. And then move the 30 over to solve it. So y squared plus y minus 30 equals 0. Factor it. Two numbers that multiply to negative 30 and add to 1 would be a positive 6 and a negative 5. So set each of those equal to 0, and you get y is negative 6, and you get y equals 5. So it looks like it potentially has 2 answers. So let's see how this works out. I'm going to use x squared plus y squared equals 25, actually. And I'm going to go ahead and plug in. So x squared plus negative 6 squared is 25. You get x squared plus 36 equals 25. And then when you go to subtract this, you get x squared equals negative 11. Which you can't have a squared equaling a negative. So if you went to square root, you'd have an I not happening. So that's how that goes away. So you do only have the one answer. And we know this is going to be 0 actually. So x squared plus 25 equals 25 means x squared is 0. We could potentially have 2 answers there if you had a plus or minus, but 0 is the only number that's neither positive nor negative, so your only answer is x is 0. So the only place it intersects is at 0, 5. So that's how you know that it only has one answer, because some things just kind of don't work. All right, one more checkpoint. And this is kind of word problem-ish. All right, checkpoint 5. We're going to solve the system. All right, it says to find the length and width of a rectangle whose perimeter, okay, remember perimeter is the distance around. So the perimeter, oh, what am I doing? Sometimes I forget that I'm playing videotape, not in front of the class. Okay, so perimeter is 20 feet. Area is 21 square feet. But we have to find the length and the width. Okay, honestly, I would say to just guess and check your way through this one. There is algebra behind it. The algebra behind it is actually very similar to the guess and check. You end up having to basically guess and check anyway. Like you might be able to just see the answers because area means your length times your width is equal to 21, and perimeter means 2 of your lengths plus 2 of your widths is equal to the perimeter, which is 20. If you divide all these by 2, the length plus your width has to add to half of your perimeter, which is 10. So you just need 2 numbers that multiply to get to 10, add to get to 21. So 3 and 7. So it'd be 3 by 7 is the rectangle. If you did it using algebra, you would solve for a variable. Yeah. So moving the W over, you get the length is 10 minus W. And then you go over to your other equation and plug that in. So you'd have 10 minus W times W equals 21. Distribute the W. 10W minus W squared equals 21. I'm going to move everything actually over to the right, so then the W squared is positive, 10 becomes negative, and then you have plus 21, which you would factor, and here's where I was talking about, you're still finding 2 numbers that multiply to 21 and add a negative 10. It's negative 3 and negative 7, but when you set them equal to 0, that's how you get the positives. Now, this looks like you have two values for W. You don't, because if the width is 7, if you plug it in, or if the width is 3, then the length would be 7. If the width is 7, the length would be 3. So basically, the dimensions are 3 by 7, however you cut it, and that's basically what you're doing, is finding the dimensions. So length is typically longer. So the length is 7 feet and the width is 3 feet. Basically, it's just 3 by 7. Alright, that is it for 5.4. I hope you enjoy it, and I will talk to you all soon. Stay safe.